So after watching the video, I felt like I did a pretty good job eliciting student answers. They knew a lot more than I thought they would. I didn't know that they would remember so much because I think they had learned about adaptations like a few weeks prior. And I actually wasn't in their class for that. I had been in a class with different ELD students, so I knew they had touched on it, but I didn't know how much. So they actually knew a lot about adaptation, so I did a good job letting them kind of lead the conversation once I realized how much they knew. But I felt like I kind of wasted a lot of time calling on students because I was trying to think in my head who has spoken, who needs to speak, who should I let participate. So that kind of took up a lot of time and I ended up running out of time. So I think that's something I would have changed is maybe used sticks or something to get students to participate that way instead of having to think for a second each time and call on somebody. So that was something I wanted to improve on was the time management of it. But I thought it was a good idea to use pictures too because they really connected with the images and they really enjoyed them also.
You could tell that they immediately saw uh, physically what an adaptation was.
Yeah, they did. So I thought that was also a good idea, and it really helped them um, to, if they couldn't visualize it, they were able to see an image of it, and it immediately helped them be able to talk about it and recognize physical adaptations. I wish I had gotten a video too to show some kind of behavioral adaptation because that would have been helpful also. Another thing was I don't think they really understood the difference between physical and behavioral adaptation based on the answers that they gave because I mean there were some students that got all the answers right, but some of them listed physical adaptations and then said they were behavioral, and I wasn't sure if it was because they really didn't understand the difference or if it was because they had put physical for the first one and so they thought behavioral was going to be the next answer when they asked about adaptations, what kind of adaptation it was. So I'm not really sure, but I feel like I should have used a concrete example when I, specifically having to do with animals, when we went over the definitions of behavioral and physical adaptations. The article had a lot of physical adaptations that it talked about, and they could really see that in the pictures. But I should have shown a video and really made sure that they understood what a behavioral adaptation was. Um, what do you think?
Um, I think that you were short on time, and a lot of the students at certain points wanted to answer every question
Mm-hmm.
consecutively. But I think conversely, they were also helping
Mm-hmm.
because they seemed excited about it and they seemed to at least remember the other lessons. So
Mm-hmm.
it probably helped the other students at the same time that either didn't know as well as those students
Mm-hmm.
or didn't remember that part of the lesson either.
That's true. I think that's definitely true because they all learn the same thing. So it probably did help them to remember. Also, I mean, if we think about the standard, which was using the text to answer questions, they were able to do it just by remembering the text. Annotating wasn't part of the standard. I just figured that that's something that I've seen second and third graders do. This was a third grade class, um, but so it wasn't like really important for them to practice annotating, but they were supposed to use information from the text, and they really already knew how to do that. It's something that they're supposed to be doing in the third grade. It was the end of the third grade, so they definitely had a handle on that. And I feel like they met the standard that they were trying to meet there, except for there is an issue with students. I think one of them just put something from the text that had nothing to do with the question. And so that's where it's like, okay, you didn't really understand. The other ones she had gotten correct, but I noticed students do that a lot too, where they just take anything from the
If,
text and think that that's the answer.
if they don't know the answer, they just sort of fill in something.
Yeah. But for the most part, they did find the answers. They did get most of the answers correct. So I feel like that means that they understood enough to be able to complete the assignment. Is there anything else you would like to add about where I could improve or what you thought was good? Interesting.
Um, I guess a good thing was egging. Oh, I don't know if that's the right word, but sort of enticing kids to keep going with answers
Mm-hmm.
when they got things partially right.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for science because it makes you continue thinking.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple times where kids would say an answer that was sort of correct,
Oh yeah.
and were right around the corner from being exactly
Mm-hmm.
correct, and you sort of led them to that, which I think is definitely good for the sciences.
Yeah, I tried to do my best at it. There was one part where I felt like I kind of failed at it because I was looking for a specific word, and the student, they basically got it right, but they didn't give me the answer that I wanted, and I should have praised them more for it instead of. Sometimes my face can reveal that that's not what I wanted. So I need to make sure that I am conscious of that and that I'm giving praise where it was due. In some cases, I was doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when Angel said. He gave me, instead of telling me what a behavioral or a physical adaptation was, he gave me an example of one. And so for that one, I did a good job of like leading the students towards the answer. But there was another part where I feel like I should have been more positive. So yeah, I do think that's important, is not to just say you're wrong and to try to lead them towards the answer. But I can definitely improve there too. All right. Anything else you would like to add?
No, not really. I mean, I think everything went well, aside from running out of time.
Yeah.
But that's when you have reading and you have to sort of establish things beforehand. I guess that's going to be difficult. I mean, some things I guess could have been cut closer.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe when kids, maybe if the whole group understood something, you can just sort of move past it. But
that's true. Yeah.
For the most part, everything was sort of necessary for the assignment.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think the conversation went on too long in the beginning, but I felt like it was important to get them interested and they were all engaged. So that's also why I didn't have a problem with them continuing to talk about it. After that conversation, they were supposed to read the article again by themselves, and then they were supposed to work in pairs to do, I think, 2 of the questions, and then the last one they were supposed to do by themselves. So we didn't actually get to do those things. They ended up doing it for homework. But, I mean, based on their answers, it seemed like they didn't really need, to do the step with the pairs or to have me do another question altogether, since they were able to get most of the answers correct. So even though I ran out of time, it still went okay. But if this were my real class, I would have definitely spent more time and modeled how to do everything. And one thing I forgot to mention is that I was trying not to get any of the kids in the shot. So I just sat there in front of the computer because I didn't want to move around and have to worry about the angle of anything, since it was just on the computer. Nobody was helping me record it. And if I had been able to have somebody recording me, I would have gotten up and used the board and used the doc cam. And I had brought my iPad and I had just totally forgotten that I could have written stuff on there. I could have written the answer to the question on there, so they could have all written it down, because some of the students actually didn't have the answer to the question that we went over during the lesson. And I feel like everybody, or at least, 99% of them would have written it down if they had seen it written down. So next time I need to remember, like, I have my iPad and I could have used that to write it, since I couldn't get up to use the board or anything. So that was something else that I wanted to improve on and remember for next time. Well, thank you very much for your comments.
Of course.
I appreciate it.